Hello, hello, everyone. Meg here with Knapsack, and we're gonna start going live here and there to really just share our love for Squarespace with you guys to help you, understand how Squarespace works, whether it's the right fit for your website or not, and hopefully teach you a thing or two. So, what I'm gonna do today, we're gonna really experiment as we go, as we figure out a rhythm and a cadence here. But what I'm going to do is kind of knock out a couple of tasks that would be on my agenda anyways for today, and then answer any questions that you guys might have as we go. So I'm really going to just be hanging out. This will be an open space for you to ask questions. Let me know, any issues you're running into. If you want to see anything demonstrated in real time, I'm happy to show you how to do it. So yeah, I'm Meg. I hope to meet a lot of you guys here, and hopefully you guys can hang out while you're working, or on your off days you can tune in. And we will have a little bit of variety here. So I am specifically our support specialist. I do a little bit of everything that you can think of. You've got things needing fixing, things needing little tweaks and updates, people wondering how to do things. That's where I come in. And then we also have an SEO department. We have our designers on board, so we really can kind of bring quite a variety of information to you guys. Hello, we have Lindsay and Brandon in the chat. Hello, hello. Welcome to Knapsack Live, you guys. We are going to start with really just duplicating a template, going through some basics maybe that come up throughout the process. And if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to pivot and detour, and we can, address anything that you guys might have on your to-do list. So, yeah. Let's get started. We've got some chill vibes in the background. If anybody has an issue with the music, let me know. We're gonna keep ourselves motivated here, but we are working in Squarespace. We're solely a Squarespace agency. With that, there are third-party connections that can be made. You have Zapier, MailChimp, etc., etc. But we really focus on building the site itself in Squarespace, leveraging the tools that Squarespace offers so that it's super easy to maintain yourself if you want, or if you have a team that does that. We have, really perfected the craft of getting a beautiful site out of Squarespace, and it has so much more potential than people think when they hear, oh, I use Squarespace, I'm a Squarespace designer. You really can unlock a lot more than that surface level. So what we're gonna do is really just kind of play around. I might be a little quieter here and there, but if anybody has any questions, absolutely let me know. One of the things that we offer is templates, and in order to fulfill those, we just basically make a copy, get everything in place, and then provide that to our clients. So if you guys are looking for a good starting point, you're not really sure if you want to invest in a full custom site yet, or you just want to kind of bring something to life, we have our templates. We offer a variety of styles of our templates. And those are a really good way to, input your content, style it accordingly, throw your brand on there, and, have a site live sooner rather than later. And so one thing that we do, we offer our templates in Fluid Engine now. So they are up to date with, the latest Squarespace version. I'd love to break down kind of what 7.0, 7.1, Classic, and Fluid Engine, what all those terms mean, but we'll save that for a day when we've got a little more structure and we've really gotten into a rhythm of doing live. So yeah, I'm gonna kind of get started here with a template that I'm working on. We have our base here, and then we're really just making a copy so that we can deliver that to our client. They can then edit and customize it completely. And in this, I'll kind of take pause and show you guys a few things that you can do that maybe either are just really common questions from users on Squarespace, or they're kind of some hidden tips and tricks. And then if that sparks anything for any of you all whatsoever, just let me know and we can pivot into that, go a little bit deeper. Let me resize my screen here. Alright, hopefully you guys can see everything okay. My window should be in frame. But yeah, we're gonna get started. We have our pages. Essentially, the goal is to go through the template, make sure everything is in place. I keep resizing it, forgetting that that is gonna adjust on y'all's end. So there we go. Yeah, and so really, each section is laid out, whether it's an auto section or a custom section. That is one of the biggest things to note, and to know when to utilize what. So if I were to go in and edit here, I'm in Squarespace, I'm in my template that we've already built, and you'll notice that, let me turn on the grid. Everything here is essentially like drag and drop. You resize it accordingly, you move it around wherever you want. So it's a very user-friendly platform once you kind of get in there and just know what the settings look like. You also have desktop and mobile, so there's a little bit, customization there for mobile if things look a little different or you need a different format. They are adding tons of new features where you can edit mobile independently from desktop, which is a huge thing that we've been waiting for. And so, yeah, we're gonna kind of dive in. This is our template here. And really, I'm gonna be just comparing the two, seeing if this copied version has any missing content. It may already be pretty good to go. It looks like the background of this section is missing, so what I'm gonna do, this section too, possibly. Nope, that one had it. All right, so we're gonna go in. I use a Chrome extension that actually allows me to just download any images that are on a website. So I'm gonna open that up. I'm gonna pull this background image that I can see we're using, download that. Then we will go into our copied version. We're gonna go into edit. Then we're gonna just update that background. So we've got our section. This one is a good example of one of those auto layouts that I'd kind of hinted at. Notice that I cannot drag and drop these elements. If I turn on my grid, this section has the ability to kind of reformat itself, or for you to reformat it within the settings. And you can do that by editing the content. I could change up this whole section, how it's laid out, what is showing, etc. But what I'm focused on right now is getting the background updated. So I'm gonna upload this background image that we just saved. Get that put in there. Awesome, so now we've got a matching background. We will save, and then we will hide our grid, which is just pressing the letter G on the keyboard. If you're into shortcuts, there you go. And then we have everything else looks like it's in place. I'm going to close that page as it is, and then we're going to move on to the services page. I think the banners are mainly what are going to be missing here from our copy over. And yep, so we're going to do the same thing, pull that background image. We're gonna edit the background. So edit section, background, upload. And you'll notice it has an overlay, so you can also adjust the overlay opacity. You can also add a cool image effect. We've done some really fun things with the image effects. I can showcase a couple of those maybe on a later day. I'll pull some of those examples. But notice here, I could change the opacity. I could really, make it non-existent if you just want your image to show through. We'll leave it there, and then I believe all my other images are in place. So we'll save that. We'll move on to our about page and do the same thing. Oh, no. There we are. All right, perfect. So then we can pull that background image. It doesn't show you the actual extension that I'm using, but I believe it is called, let's see, I would have to look it up. But basically, if you look up image downloader or anything along those lines in the Google Chrome extension store, you should find what you're looking for, or find a good example. There are a few, so let's pop this background image in. And you'll see it's really just kind of, I don't even want to say like self-assumed, but it's very user-friendly and intuitive. Intuitive is the word I was looking for. So Squarespace is a lot more intuitive than some of the other builders available. It really follows that natural, like, I want this here sort of mindset, and allows you to do that, I think, pretty easily. Let's go into our blog, pull that background image. Boom. All right, replace. Bow, bow, bow. There we go. And then one really helpful tip is that in Squarespace, when you have an image uploaded, whether it's an image block, a thumbnail, like cover photo, a banner, or just an image itself, like an image used anywhere on the site, typically it will have this little white dot here, and this is your focal point. So this is adjustable. You can move it around. Say your image is wider more than it is tall. You could drag, you don't have to necessarily crop the photo. You can just kind of choose what you want as the focal point, adjust that, and then if the screen size is skewed in any way, it's going to kind of crop around that focal point for you, or adjust, I should say. So you can adjust the focal point. We have our blog thumbnails here. Let's check out schedule a call. I believe has a banner background. Yep. So we're gonna pull this one, get it downloaded, swap it in. Save that, and then I believe the last thing we have, our pages are broken down on the side here. So we have our different pages. The main navigations are linked into the main nav. Anything that is not part of that main navigation can be hidden down here. These are the active pages, and then you can also be working on pages or have hidden pages that are disabled in the background. So if you ever need, to work on something, just know it doesn't have to be made live while you're working on it. You don't have to have everything ready to go right away. And then we're gonna just compare the thank you. Okay, so it looks like our thank you page is good to go. You have a little bit, let's go in. Yep, you have a little bit of flexibility with the styling, or I should say a lot. You have a lot of flexibility with the styling. When we offer templates, we kind of have predetermined a style, a color palette, an aesthetic, for the site itself. All of that can be fully changed. So say you're just starting a blank site, you're gonna really have to go in and customize the color, the fonts, all of that. But Squarespace makes that super easy as well. You have what they call the site styles here. Oh, Sadie, hello, hello, hello. Welcome. Sadie is one of our designers who's just joined the chat. We've got half the team here. Hello, everybody. But you have your site styles, and I'm actually gonna save this for creating a brand new blank site. I'm gonna finish up this template, and then I'll show everybody what it looks like to kind of determine a site styling in Squarespace. It can become more complicated if you make it that way, but once you understand the format and how they present everything, they do kind of give you everything you need in the settings. So we are going to wrap up this template. I think everything is in place, and then I'll get that sent over to our client here in just a moment. But let's circle in to, let's close that one. All right, and then I'm gonna break that off from you guys. I'm gonna put you guys on this screen for just a second, so you won't see me clicking around or anything, but feel free, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them now. I'm going to invite our user here, get them added, deliver their template to them. Oh, thanks, Lindsay. We have a really, really awesome team here. So, anything you might need website related, we are more than happy to pair you up, figure out the best plan, and get you taken care of. Let's view, kind of working in the background here. Bear with me one moment, everybody. we've got oh, wrong one. Too many windows. Oh, I gotta check my email. I might just save this for after. Let's see. 70634. Everything has a verification code now. 70634. No. All right. Ooh. Perfect. All right, let me get back to you guys here. All right. So I mentioned possibly doing a brand new site, doing a little bit of styling to show you what the site styles look like in Squarespace. I pulled over a duplicate. We have a kind of a starter template we've used for certain projects, and I've made a duplicate of this. So we're gonna really just use this as our playground. Here we have our home page. We've built out a contact page. There are a couple of other things in here. Oops, I've got to re-sign in. Give me one moment to hide this, just so you guys don't see our login information. Give me one moment. All right, we are back in. We're back in. All right, so we have our website here. This is the starting point. I duplicated like I said, a starter template that we have. If you were to create a brand new site, it is going to be just that. It's going to be brand new, completely empty, no styling or default basic styling. I can demonstrate that as well, but this I think will be a really good example to show you what the site styles do, how those operate, and maybe some new things hidden in there. But if you go in, Squarespace has it where you have a site styles icon here, and then you also have a styles tab here on the left. So you really can pick and choose whichever is easiest. They will take you to the same place. So we're gonna open up the site styles. You won't see this. We have an extension that does add a couple of features that we may need here and there. But that's kind of on our end, so this would not be there, but you would see this here displayed for you. We've got our nice grayscale. Everybody loves that. But we're going to kind of play around. We're just going to use this as our playground, like I said. So we have your fonts. There are themes, fonts, colors, buttons, forms, and then some miscellaneous things here. The themes is really awesome because they do all of the work for you. It really structures it like how the theme is set up. So say we want to go with friendly, I click that, bam, it's applied. This is more so in the front facing styling. If I change it, notice it does change the font, the colors. It's going to change, the sizing of these things. The button colors are part of that. So we can really just click through. It's easy as that. They give you some starting points. You can always start here and then further customize it, but say I really like that blue one, so we're gonna go with this blue. Actually, I really think I like the orange better. Yeah, we're gonna go with the orange here, but we're gonna use this as our starting point. You don't have to do that either. You can really just kind of start with what it gives you, and then go through kind of manually styling things. But what we're gonna do here is we picked a theme. This is our starting point, but say I don't like these big square buttons. I'm not sure if I love, the section order of colors. I want to have a little more fun with it. So what I'm going to do is click on fonts, And then from here, they've really done the work for us here too. So you can choose between some of these existing font packs, or you can add your own or choose your own. And then now you do also have the ability to add your own, which is huge. Like, we've been waiting on that feature for so long. And so you can actually upload custom fonts to Squarespace now. But you have some great pairings here. I can choose one of those, like I said, or I can take a step back, use my own, say my brand is already very well established and I know exactly what I need. I could then upload that font. We're gonna do, I don't know if I love that. Let's see. We'll keep it nice and clean. So we'll stick with this one. That is our font. Notice I've got serif, mix, sans serif, etc. We're gonna just kind of not focus on that too much. But now that I've picked a font pack, I can go in, I can adjust my base size, I can adjust the headings. So independently from the paragraph, like I've got my font styling set already, but here I can customize it a little further. So I can change the weight of the headings. Notice the paragraph is not touched at all. I can adjust that line height if I need to give it a little bit more breathing room. Weirdly enough, that's not updating live, so that's odd. You can adjust the letter spacing and then even give it a text transform if you want like all uppercase headings. This is really probably the most popular use. Capitalize, you can do all lowercase too, which is nice. And then you can adjust the different levels of heading font. So each site will have a heading 1, a heading 2, a heading 3, and a heading 4. They will also have a paragraph 1, paragraph 2, paragraph 3, and then I think a monospace. And this just allows you to kind of set how you want things to look here in the settings, and then very easily assign those things to those settings and properties to the text that you have on your website. So we're gonna go into buttons. Buttons are okay. I mentioned wanting my buttons to be like a little less large and square. Notice I'm here under fonts and I can change the font, but there's nothing here that shows me size, shape, color, etc. So that is actually its own tab that we're gonna get to here in a second. The one other big thing I want to make sure to cover while I'm in the fonts is the assigning of styles. And this is so fun once you know how it works. If you don't, it feels like you can't make any changes. So this here, notice how I'm under assign styles. Each section, as I hover over it, is gonna have like a little blue outline. What that's doing is kind of picking up on what features or what elements are being used in that section, and it'll help you out even further and narrow down the fonts or the elements that are available to change the styles on. If I clicked on this section, it looks like it took me into just my headings. That's not what it was supposed to do. Let's do assign styles. It might be, let's click on here. That's not what it's supposed to do either. Well, we're just gonna not use the shortcut. I'm just gonna show you guys the deep dive. So we have the assign styles is the tab that we're under. Basically, each element that could exist on your site can be assigned a specific font and size, styling, etc. So we've got our header. We will obviously want our headings to be heading H1. We've got them as custom in that instance. I feel like it's just not reacting how it's supposed to. But let's go into the newsletter block, for example. I'm pretty sure we have a newsletter block on here. So this is a good example of one where if I was in the block, let me kind of backtrack a little. Say I'm here in my site footer. I double click on this. I want to change the fonts. I don't like that the header is that size. I don't like that the description is that size. I can go into my design and there's nothing that will allow me to change the font here. I can change what information is needed. I can change the text itself, but I can't actually change the styling of the font. That is when the assign styles comes into play. We're gonna go back into assign styles. We're gonna go to fonts, and then we're gonna go to assign styles. Then notice here, we're gonna go back to our newsletter block, and I'll bring it up just to show the real-time changes. So I've got my title. Right now it's styled like a heading, and its size is a heading 3. I want that to be bigger, so I'm gonna change that, bump that up to a heading 2. Notice I'm leaving it styled as a heading because that is the font and the format that I like. Now for the description, this is styled as a paragraph, sized as paragraph 2, but I'd like that to be a little larger as well. So I'm gonna bump that up to a paragraph 1. Say that still wasn't large enough, and paragraph 1 is the largest paragraph font that I have. I can actually change the size to make it in heading 2, leaving it the paragraph styling. We're not gonna do that because it does bump it up a little bit too large. And I'm actually gonna leave it at a paragraph 2 because it adjusted the form fields here. But this is a really good example of how you can adjust some of those things that maybe aren't in the settings of that block outside of those settings and directly in the site style setting. Same with footnote. Footnote's a good example. Paragraph 3, you can make that miscellaneous or custom, and then I can make that even smaller, so I could bump that down to a 6, really tiny little disclaimer there. And yeah, we're gonna save that, close out. So that's fonts, or that's like an intro to fonts. I will also show, if I'm here under my headings, this is where you would change the font itself. And from here, you can actually upload your own font now, which is a game changer. So if I were to upload my own font, I could then apply it as a heading, as the paragraph, as the monospace, and that will just be embedded in my site. That's huge. No CSS needed, no third-party external plugins or anything. So that's a big new feature that they just rolled out. Colors is really fun. I love touching on explaining how colors works because it is designed to be very easy, but it takes a little bit of manual customization at first. So you can apply a theme, and when you do that, it's going to auto assign the background of your card, your newsletter block border, your section border. It's going to automatically fill in and apply a color to all of those elements. But if you want to style it a little further, you would go under the Colors tab. Oh, yes, Rachel! Another one of our awesome designers has joined the chat. Hello, Rachel. We're just kind of doing some basics today, getting the feel of it all. But we're going to touch on colors a little bit. Colors is so fun the way Squarespace does it once you know how it works. So you have different themes that Squarespace has put together for you. And notice each section is labeled. There's lightest 1, dark 1, light 1, lightest 1. We've got another light 1 somehow. Those look like 2s, but anyways, you can see that there are different themes applied to the different sections. Once you set up your styles, you should be able to very easily just change the theme of that section, and it will auto update every element in that section to match the new styling. When I say new styling, I mean whether you have, a dark background and orange buttons with white text, or a gray background with orange buttons and black text, white background with black text and orange buttons. So the themes, hopefully that makes sense. But we're going to play around a little bit here, and I'll show you. We're going to start with the lightest 1 section, or lightest 1 theme of this header section. And with this, I'm going to click on, I can do one of 2 things. From this view, I can either click on lightest 1, and it'll go ahead and break down everything. I can then take it a step further and click on this section, kind of like I mentioned with the fonts. So I can click on this section and then adjust just what is in here. This gets rid of the noise, makes it really, really easy to follow. So I could change my primary button background to gray. I don't like that. It's not as good. So we're gonna leave that as orange. Say I wanted to change the font color to black though. That looked a little bit more on brand. I don't think it does, but just to show you guys the example, But I could change my heading colors, in this case, I've narrowed it down, so it's really only showing what is in this section already. If I go back one, and this is using lightest one, I can actually click on edit here, and now it will show me everything. This shows elements not included on your site yet, not in this section, just things that could exist. And this is really nice to kind of thoroughly go through initially, but I always recommend not spending too much time here until you know what features you're gonna need and what they may look like on the site. So a good rule of thumb is to have, some basics applied, build your site, get everything in place, then you can fine tune it a little easier because you know what is where, what your layout is gonna look like, what content you're gonna have. So now I'm in my colors, I'm under the lightest one theme, and this is all gonna come full circle here in just a minute when you're like, wow, it's so easy. This part maybe does not feel as easy, but this is the hurdle to come over and to understand so that it can be very easy and very user-friendly. So I've got my my primary button background, my secondary button background. We're going to keep that all the same for now. You could change the icon color of the galleries, the title, like all of this will really come into play when you start using those sections. You would see it, but list, section, carousel, I could change my title color, description, button text, the arrows, so some of those extra elements that are in there. Most of these things are not going to have the ability for you to update the color in the element settings. Text is a little different because you can like highlight, select, and apply certain text styles in the text box itself, but almost everything else is going to live here in the site styles under colors. So we'll kind of give you an overview. Notice how thorough this list is. It covers the blog if it looks like a masonry layout. It covers the blog if it is side-by-side layout. So that can be different if you have different collections or different layouts in play. The blog posts themselves. This is one that I get asked about a lot, is how do I change the display of my blog posts, because from a surface level, it doesn't look like you have too much customization, but you really do. It's just hidden in here. We've got our product page, the events, your accordion blocks, even down to what the divider color is. So a lot of this stuff is just hidden in here, and you got to know that it exists there to know that it can be changed. Your image block overlay color. Some people will add an image and it has an overlay and they're like, I didn't set one. It may be set in here by default and just need to be made all the way transparent or changed to a different color. So a little bit of flexibility there. And then we won't go too deep because, like I said, a lot of these elements are not in use on the site, so you won't see a ton of change in real time. But yeah, it's a really good overview of all the different things that can be custom styled without needing CSS. So this is our style here. The next thing, just to kind of touch on this while we're in here, so that was lightest one. I then could go through, I think you have 8 site styles that they give you by default. Each one will need to be customized. So I've got lightest one in use here, but dark one, maybe I want the text to be orange instead. Those are probably, large paragraphs. So I could change my large paragraphs when dark one is applied to be orange, just to save me from having to manually change that each time. That is a really good example of, how it's gonna affect each theme, but it won't affect the other theme. Notice nothing changed here in lightest one, only the change applied to the dark one section. But if I go down, I believe I have another dark one section. It looks like we're not using any paragraph ones there, so that section remained unchanged. But that brings me to a really good point that if you make a change in a theme and that theme is applied to another section, it is going to apply those changes because it's a site-wide, like we'll call it a global style. You're applying anything that is set in the themes is going to be what applies to the section that that theme is applied to, unless you go in and make manual changes, which really also only applies to the text. So we're kind of getting into like a tangled web here, but that is site styles. I'm going to close out of the site styles panel for a moment and show you what that means like from an application standpoint. So if I'm in my header here, I go to edit, there is a tab for colors. And from here, I can very quickly just change this to light 1 or to bright 2 or to dark 1. And you'll see how it just auto changes everything. And notice that orange large paragraph text that we updated to orange, or yeah, that paragraph text that we updated to orange is orange here because that is what we set it as. Now that, with that said, I can adjust the font color manually within the section despite what the section theme applies to it, but I'd have to go in after the fact. If I now change this back to bright 1 and then I'm like, no, I do want dark 2, notice it's going to take the defaults that are assigned in dark 1 and it's going to apply those to that section. So really, once you go in and kind of establish a general aesthetic, you can then very easily switch between those things here in Squarespace. And this is where I mentioned kind of building the structure of your site first. Maybe even on that blank site, you really just build out the sections based on your content. Then you can go in and style a little bit better. You'll know which sections maybe you want lighter and darker, and then it gives you a little bit more of clarity on how you want those set up. So we're gonna go in. Any questions from anybody yet? Anybody have any questions? Anything you want me to deep dive into? Feel free to let me know. And then yeah, so the one thing that I had really mentioned earlier that I have not gotten to yet is the buttons. So the buttons, I had applied like a site-wide style. If I go in here under buttons, I can now choose between existing button packs, and notice how it hovers and shows all 3 options. You will always have a primary, a secondary, and a tertiary button available. Whether you use all 3 of those or not, totally up to you, but it does give you the ability to kind of have some variety mixed in without having to, again, custom code it or have some other way of getting a different style button. Our primary button, we're gonna click on this, and I'd said that the padding was too large. Maybe I wanted like rounded edges. So I'm under my primary button. I'm gonna remove or lower the padding. We're gonna actually make that small. I like it less padding. Our font is set here. So our font is just kind of by, I think, from our site theme that we applied. I'm gonna adjust the weight. I want the button text to be a little bit thicker. We'll keep it at 700. It is set to have uppercase text transform. I think everything else there looks good, but my corners are still too sharp for me. So I'm gonna go into shape and then actually just choose to make a rounded corner button here. I can do custom corners and change that, so I could make it 5. You guys actually can't see. I realize now I'm blocking the settings here, but you have the ability, maybe next time I'll move to the left so it's a little bit clearer that you guys can see this whole panel. I did not even think of that. But I'm going to leave this as is. Now my secondary button, if I go in, is a little bit more open. It doesn't have a fill. It's set as no fill, but there is probably a hover effect of some sort. So I do want to round those edges as well. And then I'd also like to bump this font thickness up in case I use that. Notice it says this page does not have a secondary button, so all good there. And then tertiary, same thing. We're gonna bump this up. I forgot to bump my padding down. And then shape is underlined. That actually won't be affected by the rounded corners, so we'll leave that as is. And now my buttons should look much more aesthetically pleasing to how I want them. Got nice rounded corners, and I like how my text looks, so we're gonna save that. And then lastly, you can almost see it creeping above my head here. You've got forms. So if I click on forms, I then have the ability to change, you know, whether my fields are round and my button is rounded, slightly rounded versus pill shape, just underlined versus a highlighted input field. But I'm going to click customize, and then I've got a lot of options here. So you can choose whether the fields have a border, whether this is actually a newsletter block, so this won't show any of the changes. I would have to add a form on here for you guys, but let's take a look. You've got effects, you've got the spinner here for loading, submitting, ellipsis. So a lot of customization. You can change what the icon is for a checkbox, for example. This probably won't make the most sense until I show you guys an actual form, so I'll leave this for a day that we're highlighting a form section. And then you do have animations is probably the next best thing to, or one of those like random things that I recommend either turning on or making sure you at least know if something is on or not. So you can have things slide up, clip in, fade, like a nice fade. Flex is kind of fun. Things just, notice how it kind of swipes in strangely. I like the slide up too. So as you go, it's gonna bring the elements in, just kind of sliding them up. This, hold on, this song sounds like an old iPhone ringtone, and it threw me off. Alright, so that is our site styles. Really, that's probably the main things that I can touch on in site styles without having something a little more prepared to show you guys some specific examples, but I can come with that on another day. Yeah, and I'm just trying to think if there is anything really good that I can show. Let me reset up my screen here. Give me just a moment, you guys. I will be right back. Give me like a 2-minute intermission. I will literally be right back. All right, I'm back, everyone. All right, so I figure we'll pivot a little bit. We kind of went over some site style settings. I'm going to cover the different sections that you can add on a Squarespace site, some being pre-made, some being a little bit more auto-managed or auto-maintained, and then some being completely blank and you fully designing exactly what you want in that section. We have our pages here. I'll probably hang out with you guys for about 30 more minutes or so, and then we'll pause there, give round 2 tomorrow. We're gonna test this and get into a rhythm here eventually. Today's day 1 though, you guys, yay! Alright, so we have our, let me refresh, it looks like it's acting a little funny on me. Alright, so we've got our home page. Say, this must be a different page. Anyways, all right, we've got our home page here. I can I recommend starting in the not linked section because you don't want to be working on a page live while it's in progress. So you have your not linked section here. I'm going to add a blank page, and I can add a blank page or a blog, or I can add one of these pre-styled, pre-formatted layouts that Squarespace has created. Some of these are actually phenomenal. Like this here is, I would call this like a very elevated layout. Same here, you've got an accordion block mixed in. You can add some little logos. You've got a breakdown with some graphics. So really, whatever you need, you can use these as starting points. You can use these as, your template essentially, or you can start blank. And this is actually just the home page examples. Each page that you might need does have some automatic or some predetermined page layouts for you. You've got contact here. So you can really build a whole site based off of what's built into Squarespace. You may look a little bit similar to some other sites that are out there if they're doing the same thing, but it gives you a really good starting point. You've got FAQs, if you have products or need to showcase portfolio, there are some great layouts that you can utilize here. We're going to do a blank page for the moment, and I'll show you what it looks like when you add different sections to build a page. So if I was in here, notice it says empty, but I do have my footer elements showing already because anything that is part of the footer is going to show on every single page on your site unless you hide it. So if you click on the settings, you can actually change and decide whether you have the header or the footer showing. So in an instance where you have say a lead magnet and it's like a targeted page, you just want people to be able to like sign up and then be directed where you want them, you could hide the header, hide the footer, and make that kind of a very unique isolated page. Most pages you'll want the footer and the header on just for navigation purposes, just for like site closure essentially, but if you ever need to hide it, that is not a new feature anymore, but in the last 6 months, they've made that very easy for any user to do themselves without needing to apply custom code. But we've got our new page here. I'm going to go into the editor and I'm going to add a section. So if I go to add a section, very similar to the templatized pages that exist in Squarespace, I have sections that are basically preset for me. So I could add any of these sort of sections. One thing that I think I touched on at the very, very, very beginning was how you have, I guess you would call them like custom sections versus auto layout sections. And a good example of that is here. So any of these sections that have this little eye here in the corner, that will let you know that it is an auto layout. And what that does is it really just like optimizes for mobile a little differently. It adjusts if you have, 3 columns or 3 things showing and the screen size is smaller, it's going to like smart adjust a little bit better than a manual layout might. However, Squarespace is super responsive and it does automatically adjust for different screen sizes. There might be some instances where things like roll over a little funny or the spacing does not work as well in that responsiveness, so you'd want to give attention to that, but the auto layouts save you from having to really style things too much manually, and yeah, I love those. So we have our intro. This is going to be, in this case, like our header. Let's go with something, keep it kind of easy for now. I don't know what it is about the scrolling bar, but I'm a big fan personally. It is not for all sites. It is not for every page. I'm gonna slow it down a little too so it's not so crazy. But notice how I just clicked and then it added the section for me. I would then edit my text here, edit what my button call to action is, so I'd update that text, determine if there's a link attached or a file or a jump to another section. Click this. I think we have a contact page, so I can very easily just link that to the contact page. And then obviously, or not obviously, because you might love this image, but I want to change my background image. So I would go to edit section, background, and then this is our image that's here already. I would replace that, upload my own new image, or one thing that's really fun, say I remove this image. I now have no background image, but that is okay in some instances because you can do what they call the art background. This is like a really fun, just not as commonly used feature, but if done correctly, can be awesome. We have this really cool, you know, hovering floating tile effect. If I go in here, I can change the color, so maybe I want that to be black. I could also change the start color, or wait, yeah, so now it's got a little bit of that like fade from one color to the other. In this case, I like the gray and the black, and we're gonna leave it like that, but I could change the shape and the size. I can make those smaller, larger. That kind of gives it like a cool texture. I could adjust the width, the height, the depth. I can also change the speed of this, so I'm gonna slow it down a little bit so it's not so crazy. Displacement, turbulent would be a little bit more staggered, I guess, pixelated. This is interesting. So notice how this looks completely different than that last styling that it had applied. It doesn't have to necessarily look like it did. I'm gonna go back one, and then the texture itself, we're gonna leave that morph. I'm not sure. Oh, morph? I personally have never even seen this. I did not know that morph was an option, but this is really cool because this does not look anything like what the grid did, what those squares did. So this is super cool. It shows that there are different ways, like if you just go in and play with the settings, there's so much that is hidden in here. I bet now if I change the color, like the start color, I bet it would look really fun. Yeah. And I'll invert, look at that. Look at that really nice, almost like texture we gave it just from adding an art background. So I love these. I wish there was like more use for them, honestly, because they're super fun and they add that motion to the sites that a lot of times they're missing. You can have the animations for things to come in a certain way, but I think we really crave like, you know, movement, dynamic elements now. Maybe with this it's a little too much, but it also might work. So we're gonna just kind of leave that for the time being. I think that looks super fun. Now, say I've got my header all good to go. I'm gonna add a section now. I can add another auto section, or I can add a blank section and then build what I need. So I've got all these different predetermined layouts. At Knapsack, we tend to follow, we don't always, but we tend to kind of lean into the story brand framework, which breaks things out a certain way. It really does tell a story of your brand, hence the name. But we follow the story brand framework in most cases because it does give a very nice flow and it makes the content like super digestible for your visitors. It makes perfect sense because things you're kind of building onto the story and giving people the full picture of what you do, what you offer, how you can help them, you know, why you're available on the internet, or whatever the goal of your site is. So that is something that we kind of keep in mind, but not every brand is going to match or fit into that story brand framework. So feel free to use your own discretion. You know, you probably know what's best. And if you don't, feel free to let us make those decisions for you. But we're gonna add a blank section here. Let's see, in this case, we'll just kind of add an image. So notice I've got my blank section. It's literally a blank canvas. I can add a photo. We'll give it, you know, good sizing. And then I can now add a text block. I'm gonna drag this over, resize it. I'll come a little bit more prepared next time and have like some content. Maybe we can like go through building a site together. But this is me just really playing around. And so we have your image block, your text block. I think that's great. We would add another section. Say we want to add, let's see. I love this, like who we are, what our values are, and actually that might go really good here. If I decide, okay, I've added this section, but I want to move it up, I'm just gonna click the little up button here, bring it up, and then adjust my content as needed. Who we are works great. If you double click on the accordion, you can then change what content lives in there. So we have our approach, our values, our story. We've got our get started here, and I believe, yep, that is just its own button. So notice it is different than our original, our primary button here. This one is set as a secondary button. I can change it to primary if I want. I can change it to tertiary. I'm gonna take it back to primary, and then you'll notice it's wide. Like it's extra wide compared to this one. That is because it's set to fill instead of fit. So if I fit, notice it adjusts now to the size that the buttons are set in those site styles. If I fill it, it overrides that setting, and then I would literally adjust if I wanted to make it smaller or larger. This is great in instances like this because this design where the button is the full width, it matches the content, does look really good together. So we're gonna leave that as is. Maybe have, I think I am gonna bump this one back up. I like that better. Maybe a little intro and then who we are, breaking down your values and such. Then we go to add a section. Let's do services. This is what I was looking for. So from here, I could choose one of these layouts that breaks down my different services available. Got some that are very nicely styled, and then I thought one of them was an auto layout, but maybe not. So then we bring in our different products. You can have things listed as services and products, or you can have, I'm gonna actually confuse you guys because we don't have any products set up to show the difference, but basically you can add a product block if you're selling the product directly on your Squarespace site, or you can add a product, have the service name, and then everything is kind of managed via them contacting you. So if you offer services, that is probably the setup that you would most commonly go with. Let's save that here. Alright. I just love this. Actually, can't wait. I gotta find a site to use this on now, because it looks so good. And I have never seen that come from the Square art style. Like, you would never think that. So that was a happy accident that I encountered with you guys in real time. Alright, let's see here. I feel like I've kind of covered quite a bit today. I know it's gonna take some time for us to gain a little traffic, a little momentum. We're gonna try to get a cadence sort of established to go live regularly. I plan on being live again tomorrow, doing some basics and just really showing any tips and tricks. And then the biggest goal of this is to really make ourselves available to you, to anybody who's viewing, so that you can ask your questions. Maybe you have a site you're working on, you want some feedback on, you're stuck somewhere and you're just not sure like what to do next or what your options are. Or maybe you don't have a website at all and you're considering Squarespace or considering your options and you want to kind of have a little peek behind the curtain, if you will. That is what we're going to be here for. We're going to try to make this a little bit more of a regular thing, and yeah, I'm looking forward to it. We'll kind of prepare a little bit more as we go, have some themes, some structured content days. Maybe some days we just do kind of like a working lunch together and you guys are hanging out. Feel free to ask your questions while we just knock out some tasks together. But I think I am going to go ahead and wrap it up here for today. And I will look forward to seeing you guys hopefully the same time tomorrow. If not, we're gonna play with timing, but just turn on your notifications, make sure you subscribe, and yeah, I'll see everyone tomorrow. Everybody have a great rest of your Monday, and try not to work too hard. Bye everyone.